The rather ill-advised live-action adaptation of a classic anime mega hit, Cowboy Bebop, is officially canceled just 3 weeks after making its debut on Netflix, and this after the very same company found an unexpected surprise in a very low-budget production called Squid Game, already greenlit for Season 2, and according to internal Netflix documents, the company has assigned a $900 million internal value to. We're about to talk about the tale of feast and famine here at Netflix between these two shows. Here we go. Renegade Online. Welcome back to another day here at Valiant Renegade. Before we get into it, I just want to say thank you to everyone out there who has been subscribing recently. We're up at about 2,500 subs at this point. So if you've not already, if you're like one of the 70% watching this video that have not yet subscribed, I hope I'll earn that today from you. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button, that like button, that notification bell. Do share this sucker out on the social medias. And, of course, leave a comment before you head out. We're going to go a little bit back in time here and talk about first some of the news from the last couple of months on Squid Game to set up to where we are now with Cowboy Bebop, because this really is a tale of two cities here for Netflix. We've got one show that unexpectedly came out and turned into a mega hit, and we had one that Netflix spent a lot more money on, assuredly, and expected it to be a mega hit and turned out to be a complete and utter bomb. And that one, of course, is Cowboy Bebop, which has been canceled going forward just a few weeks after its initial release on Netflix. Really, even I was a bit surprised by this. But being the dad of some kids that really are into current anime, I liked it growing up, and I've kind of started getting back into it as my kids have gotten older. And my oldest daughter in particular has been very much into it. Big Cowboy Bebop fan that she is. Had no interest in watching this on Netflix. She was still getting over the horror of having to watch Death Note, a live-action adaptation of Death Note, which was terrible compared to the original anime and the mangas and stuff like this. And they just Hollywood just doesn't seem to want to learn. But we're going to get to that in just a moment. So here we go. Let's go back here and take a look at some of this. This is an article from Variety back in September, about 2.5 months ago now. Korean TV series have dominated viewing preferences across large parts of Asia for the last decade, but it has taken a high-concept survival drama, Squid Game, to become the first K-drama to rate as Netflix's top show in the U.S. The 9-part Netflix original involves a group of people from all walks of life who sign up for a series of simple but utterly lethal games organized by mysterious hosts in masks and red overalls. What spurs on the contestants are their own dire straits and the lure of a more than $40 million cash prize. Which, I'll stop right there and tell you, one of the things I love about that is the winner of Squid Game gets to take home twice as much as the entire series costs to make. That's right. Squid Game reportedly came in at around $21 million of total production cost to Netflix, which paid this Korean production company to produce the show. And since then, we have learned quite a bit more. I mean, apart from the amazing popularity of Squid Game, that Netflix actually leaked some numbers out within the last month or so to a few different sources. Let's talk about that real quick. So here we are, an article right about 2 months ago, a little shy of 2 months ago now, back from Bloomberg. More than 130 million people at this point have watched the Korean show. Now, I promise you there have been even more since then. Netflix estimates Squid Game will be worth almost $900 million. Now, a lot of people are asking, how do you come up with a figure like that? Well, of course, Netflix doesn't release a lot of proprietary measuring data. They don't tell you how they really calculate things, but we can make some pretty easy, basic assumptions that Netflix is essentially looking at the data that they have, the hard data on the amount of views for a show, the amount of time that a particular show is watched, the drop-off rate from one episode to the next of a given show to see how a show is doing. And there is something to be said for the insta-dump of an entire season where, now we're starting to see places like Disney Plus, where they're releasing one episode per week on a streaming service, more of the traditional linear television, the linear delivery through networks and cable channels approach of dropping one episode per week for a set number of weeks, versus Netflix, which is, their binge model was kind of their claim to fame. And it does provide some very instantaneous feedback for how people are consuming what they're putting out. So they'll, at that point, they can go back and make a decision. Do we make more of this or do we cut it? And again, this is the video, Squid Game versus Cowboy Bebop. So let's go into this article a little bit, because this was not, I don't think, widely covered a month or two ago. I had it in mind at the point to do it. Time slipped away. But now that I think we have this Cowboy Bebop story, this is worth going back and revisiting so we can see exactly how instant the kind of response from Netflix is when they get this sort of data. Netflix estimates that its latest mega hit, Squid Game, will create almost $900 million in value for the company, according to figures seen or leaked to seen by Bloomberg, underscoring the windfall that one mega hit can generate. Netflix differs from movie studios and TV networks that it doesn't generate sales based on specific titles. It uses its catalog and a steady drumbeat of new releases to entice customers every week. But the company does have a wealth of data concerning which shows its customers watch, which the company uses to determine the value derived from individual programs. Now, let me kind of break right there from the article to remind everybody, and you've seen me talk about this relatively frequently on this channel as shows and movies come up on streaming services that we're interested in discussing, is Samba TV. Right? Samba TV, which, by the way, is planning to do an IPO. That's an initial public offering. They're going to be publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ. I'm not real sure yet. I just saw some news articles from that. Has gained a lot of traction as being a competitor to Nielsen, the traditional television ratings company that would measure audience viewership of a given show or a movie that was on television or what have you, a live sporting event. Now that things have shifted so dramatically in the last few years over to the direct-to-consumer or DTC delivery system, which is streaming platforms like Netflix and Disney Plus and HBO Max, Paramount Plus, so on and so forth, that dynamic has changed. Nielsen has had reportedly a more difficult time tracking the same type of customer data with the same degree of certainty that they had in years past. This is where Samba TV has come in, as Samba is directly connected into your television set. So if you own a particular brand or model of television set, Samba TV software is embedded in it. When you buy your television, you can agree or disagree to allow tracking, but what Samba essentially does is to monitor what is actually on your screen. It has a video algorithm that recognizes what you're watching and then can capture that data, and then Samba collects it. Now, why I bring up Samba is because there is one big dog out there that does not allow Samba to track its data, and that is Netflix. That has been the case for a while. So if you ever go look at Samba's reporting, their Twitter page is one of the best places to go. It's where I usually like to go, where they put out a bunch of stuff every week on who watched what. You'll notice historically that Netflix has never been among the reports. None of the Netflix shows, programs, whatever their offerings are, it's always been Netflix that comes out and reports it. Now, there is some talk that they may try to make that a little bit more available. Things may be changing, but up until this point, we've never had a Netflix show. So when we have to determine how successful a streaming a show is on Netflix, we kind of have to wait for Netflix to dump those numbers out themselves to get really accurate. But here we are with Squid Game. The show cost just a mere $21 million to produce. And they being Netflix, are saying that Squid Game stands out for its popularity, low cost, generated an $891.1 million in impact value. And this is the impact value is what they use to determine what do we do with this show going forward. Well, obviously, this show has been greenlit for a season 2. So we can see that here. This is officially happening. Now, what is the difference here? A $21 million production budget on a hit show like this is extremely rare to have that kind of return on investment. And I'm sure what Netflix does, my thinking is that Netflix is basically looking at the watch hours, the number of views, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, and what they're doing is they're assigning a dollar value to that. So that if you're a Netflix customer and your Netflix account, and you, like me, I'm paying about $15 a month for the 4K and available to stream down on 4 television sets and all this kind of stuff. Well, if I spent 50% of my watch time for that month on Netflix, so let's say I was on Netflix for 20 hours that month watching Netflix, and I spent 10 of those hours watching Squid Game. Effectively, what Netflix is going to do is say, okay, well, half of that subscription, that $7.50 out of that $14.99, we can assign, and I'm sure they don't do 100% of it, but they're going to assign a bulk portion of that to Squid Game. That's what kept me watching Netflix that month. There's a similar metric that YouTube uses, as a matter of fact. So if you're a YouTuber, you probably know what I'm talking about, where you know that when you have your videos viewed, you're getting ad revenue from the ads that are being watched on it. But for those of us like me, who I have a YouTube premium access account where I don't do ads, I pay YouTube $10 or $15 a month to be ad free. When I watch somebody's video, they're assigning a portion of my subscription to that video, to that YouTuber, for however much time that I watch their videos. So they're making a piece of that as well. This is essentially the same type of algorithm, I'm sure, that Netflix is using to arrive at this value. So when you really stretch these numbers out and you think about the amount of time that was spent by Netflix accounts watching this sucker, it's incredible. I mean, almost $1 billion at that point. And when that story came out from Bloomberg, Squid Game had really not been on but for a month. And you can only imagine what's happened since then. So let's go over here. Let's get to this and compare these two things. Now, Cowboy Bebop. Unfortunately, we don't know of any officially reported production budget numbers, but I can almost promise you that it was much more than $21 million. Much more than $21 million. So let's go through this article real quick, just from yesterday here from The Hollywood Reporter. This is who broke the story regarding Bebop. Well, that was fast. Netflix has canceled its ambitious, widely hyped, and ultimately widely disappointing anime adaptation, Cowboy Bebop. The Hollywood Reporter has learned. The move comes less than 3 weeks after the show's November 19th debut on the streaming service. This is a kicker. The space western had a rough reception. The 10-episode series garnered only a 46% positive critics ratings on review aggregator Rotten Tomatoes. Fans seem to agree, giving the show a 56% positive audience reaction score on the site. According to Netflix's top 10 site, the series has racked up almost 74 million viewing hours worldwide since its debut. So it's got plenty of sampling out of the gate. But it plummeted 59% for the week of November 29th through December 5th. Meaning, in other words, that a bunch of people ran in, probably a lot of Cowboy Bebop fans out there, really curious, but I'm sure very skeptical because, as I said before, with things like Death Note, they've been burned before. Wanted to check it out, started watching it, and then cut it. And when you look at the viewing hours, though we don't have a viewing hour figure on Squid Game, I can promise you it's way more than 74. It's probably 10 times that much. It would not surprise me at all because you got to remember each of these episodes are at least 30 to 40 minutes a piece. I'm sure there's 10 of them. You start working the math into that and you realize the number of households that actually watch this, probably nowhere near the 130 million that watched Squid Game. It's probably a small fraction of that. So, but a 59% drop in the second week, exactly the opposite thing that happened with Squid Game. Squid Game came out, almost very quickly got a lot of people's attention, and then just took off like a bat out of hell. This is going the other direction. And I'm sure, again, that the production budget was probably a few multiples of that of Squid Game, probably at least 50, 60 million. Netflix, obviously, when they do these, they're able to make these shows much cheaper than a full-blown Hollywood production. Netflix and streaming productions don't fall under the same type of union agreements as do full-scale Hollywood productions. There are some folks out there like Cameron Pasha and Script Doctor that can speak much more intelligently to that end than I can, but this is what I've learned from them. And I know some of that has tried to, change, but of course this was produced before a lot of the newer, the union negotiations we just had with IATSE not long ago as an example. All this took place long before then, but still, certainly this was a budget that was much greater, I'm sure, than Squid Game. But insiders pointed out that Netflix's renewal rate for scripted series that have 2 or more seasons stands at 60%, in line with industry averages. And like all Netflix renewal verdicts, the decision was made by balancing the show's viewership and cost. The streamer also prides itself on taking big swings on projects like Cowboy Bebop, as has many other genre shows on the air in the works. And that's kind of where the next part of this problem is going to come in. Netflix has discussed, as we've seen in recent weeks, and I don't really cover show announcements, but again, as they kind of relate to this business financial story, I need to bring them up. And that is that there's other live-action anime shows that have been announced, or at least listed as in development, and I have to seriously wonder what sort of impact that this performance of Cowboy Bebop is going to have on these other live-action adaptations. Remember, Cowboy Bebop, this is one of the biggest animes, most popular animes of all time. I mean, God forbid that Netflix would decide that they'd want to try to do a live action of like Demon Slayer or Jujutsu Kaisen or My Hero Academia or anything like. I mean, I think that might have been one of them, actually, My Hero Academia. I hope not. But this is one of these things to where things are built the way they are. They work the way they do. They work in anime, but they're not going to work in live action. And it's kind of something that they never really seem to grasp. I don't know where this started. Part of me says, this could have been fun. It might have been a good idea, but it's just not going to work out this way in the end. So, but this project is the latest attempt from the article again to reinvent Japanese anime as a live-action series that failed to draw viewers following titles such as 2009's Dragon Ball Evolution, 2017's Ghost in the Shell, and Netflix's 2017 movie Death Note, which we mentioned. The biggest success in the space so far was arguably 2019's Alita Battle Angel, which pulled a sizable foreign dollar, $319 million, if not in domestic in 85. Of course, I think this was a theatrical release, but Cowboy Bebop, and it goes on and start talking about the stars of the show. And then it had a decent cast as far as I could tell. And it was one of these things that people aren't asking for this, Hollywood. They're not asking for this kind of stuff. And I think the universal response that I tended to notice when this came out was eye rolls. Oh, wait, why are they making live action out of, it's supposed to go the other way around, right? But one last thing, going back to the Squid Game article here with Season 2 officially being announced. One good thing about all this, for sure, especially for the producers and the studios that have made Squid Game, is that they're not going to have to do a Season 2 for a mere $20 million. I am sure Netflix is going to dial up the money train, and especially after a show's success like this, which is the way it should work, right? Here's an unproven, untested concept like Squid Game. It's a little off the wall and bizarre. We don't know how audiences are going to react. We don't want to spend a lot of money in this so that we can basically limit our losses if something goes bad. But it was a huge hit. So now we want Season 2, and Netflix knows they're going to pay for it. I'd be very surprised if that budget isn't at least doubled at this point. Not to say that they're going to try to go above and beyond crazy with production value, but I think at this point, given the popularity of this, given the fact that Netflix has put such an incredibly high value internally on this, and that has leaked, that these actors, these directors, the producers, they should be able to, and they should get and be able to command a higher payday for Season 2. And fortunately, Netflix is no longer going to have that money tied up in Cowboy Bebop Season 2. And I'm sure they'll be more than happy to take whatever they were going to spend on Season 2 of Cowboy Bebop and turn it right over to the guys and girls that are doing Squid Game Season 2, an amazing show. If you have not checked that out yet, you really need to. It surprised the hell out of me. And I'm somebody that traditionally has watched a number of Korean television series, Korean films, crime dramas, things like that. They make some amazing movies, and this one just came out of nowhere. So, any case, hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you learned a few things. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Make sure you hit that notification bell. Do share this sucker out, and make sure you leave a comment before you head out. It's good to see everybody, and until next time, take care.